What is the most terrifying creepypasta you have ever heard? Well, this video right here is not it. Roll the video. What's going on, everybody? I apologize for the way I look. I just woke up. But today I'm going to be reading one of my favorite r/no-sleep stories. This story was written by a user that goes by the name Murderbird17. This is from r/no-sleep and it is titled, "My Property Isn't Normal." You could say I live in the middle of nowhere. I prefer to call it the middle of the wilderness though. And after living alone out here long enough, I thought I would become familiar with the land out here and even get comfortable. But I have never gotten comfortable. Maybe used to this place, but never comfortable. Pretty sure I can hold my own out here for the time being, but even so, lots of weird stuff happens out here. Glad to finally have a way to tell strangers who probably won't judge or call me crazy though. Back to the topic at hand, weird stuff. I'll start with the first odd experience I had here. When I first purchased this land, I was really exited? Exited? Okay. I'm gonna ignore spelling errors from now on, but I just wanted to share that one. It caught me off guard. I didn't know it said that. I've never actually read this. I've only ever heard Mr. Creepypasta's reading on this. When I first purchased this land, I was really excited. There was already a house on the property that was the perfect size for me. Hold on, wait. There was already a house on this property that was the perfect size for me! My bad, y'all. My bad, I had to. Yeah, I don't know why you had an exclamation point at the end. Okay, that's enough about judging the writing. I'm just gonna start reading from now on. Not only that, but it seemed pretty new. Like the former owners didn't stay around very long. Yeah, red flags, but how was I supposed to know how messed up this place was? Anyway, I moved in without any issues, and within a week, I'm out on some trails that were already there, looking for deer tracks and other game trails. I'm actually having a pretty relaxing time, until I swear I hear a baby say, "Mama," in the most stereotypical voice I've ever heard off in the distance. Now, like I said, I'm here in the middle of nowhere, so there shouldn't be anyone for miles. I just shook it off as me hearing things. 20 minutes later, I hear the same voice say "Mama" again. Only this time, it's 40 yards away on the other side of some trees and brush. It didn't even sound like a real baby. It just sounded like some disturbed dude. Of course, at this point, he is definitely on my property as well. I start making my way through the undergrowth. Then, when I'm sure I'm about to hit where he was, the brush clears out to a clearing. The brush clears out to a clearing. The brush clears out to a clearing. Yeah, I bet it does, buddy. And I finally get a glimpse of the man. He was butt naked and halfway behind a tree and flaunting a huge smile while his eyes stay kinda squinty. He was also pretty skinny, as I could see his ribs. Now, usually you hear people say that, "At this moment, my blood ran cold." But honestly, mine didn't. I was looking at some butt naked crackhead trespassing on my property. He decided to let out another "Mama" during silence when I was trying to figure out my next move. So I promptly responded with a hearty, "What the actual fuck are you doing?" That's when he decided the next move for me. He started running at me, and I might have run away if he hadn't been so scrawny. So when he reached me with that big smile and looked like he was about to grab me, I punched him in the throat. It was a good punch. I was proud of it, honestly. It would have kept any normal man on the ground for at least a minute. This is when I got the first hint that this wasn't a normal man. Okay, so far in the story, we've got our main character who just moved on to this new piece of property. And on his new piece of property, there's a naked crackhead saying "Mama," smiling at him in the brush, in the woods. So he walks up to this guy, and he's like, "Yo, what you doing, bruh?" And he's like, "Mama." And so he punches him right in the throat. And then brags about how good of a punch it was. I love how he described him as a butt naked crackhead. Absolute cinema. Let's continue. I was proud of that punch, honestly. It would have kept any normal man on the ground for at least a minute. This is when I got the first hint. This wasn't a normal man. I'm sorry. This is when I got the first hint. This wasn't a normal man. While I was standing there, proud of my Mike Tyson level haymaker, the guy immediately got back to his feet, and before I had time to hit him again, he dive tackled me onto the ground. And it hurt pretty bad. He somehow pinned my shoulders to the ground, and no matter how hard I kicked and punched, he wouldn't let up. So I was forced to use Plan B. I pulled out my trusty Bear Grylls survival knife and stabbed him in the gut twice. This finally got his attention, and he hopped back to his feet, slinging blood all over me in the process. I got back to my feet, knife in hand, and waited for him to do something else. All he did though was stick a finger in his wound, then lick the blood off, then cartwheel into the woods, crying like an actual newborn baby this time. Now by this point, I was pretty on edge, and right as he got far enough away that I could no longer hear him, I turned and walked home. I know I should have run, but running through the woods is so tiring, and I just didn't feel like it. When I got home, all was normal again for a while. And that concludes the first story of My Property Isn't Normal. I'm not gonna lie, if a crackhead was in my yard butt naked, I'm assuming he could do the very worst. Swipe his ass, finger in the mouth. That's what I'd be scared of. I don't think I'm getting within reaching distance of this guy. Let me see, my wingspan is probably about almost 3 feet. Yeah, 3 feet. No, that's ass swipe, finger in the mouth, swish around distance. Never doing that. Don't plan on it. So my favorite thing about this story is the main character. He is funny as hell how he reacts to things. You get done fighting a guy on your property with crackhead level strength, butt naked, and after stabbing him, he cartwheels away, crying like a newborn baby, and you just turn around and walk home. Just couldn't even be bothered. Like, I don't know, man. I couldn't even tell you what I would have done. Nah, I can't lie. I would have walked my happy ass home. Happy I didn't get swiped in the butt, finger in the mouth, swiveled around. Anyway, let's go to story number 2. Another story that comes to mind when I think about odd things happening around the area is the event that led to me no longer camping in my woods. Oh my god, what a fucking run-on sentence. Hold on. Another story that comes to mind when lowercase I by the way, all of his I's are lowercase, what the hell? Every I that's like mid-sentence is lowercase. Another story that comes to mind when I think about odd things happening around the area is the event that led to me no longer camp in my woods. Ooh, murder bird, that one's a little hard to defend. I'm gonna assume English is not your first language, which is what this is coming off as almost at times. Or this is a little kid writing this, but does it come off like a little kid? Like, this is pretty well written. It's just grammatical errors here and there that kind of throw me off. By the time that the events in the story took place, I had already experienced quite a few things on this property. This was easily the third freakiest thing to happen up to that point. Right behind the naked stab victim that cried like a newborn baby and cartwheeled it out into the woods. God damn it. This time, I had decided that I wanted to go camping. Despite all the stuff that had happened, I had never been seriously injured in those woods. So, why not go sleep in them? Yeah. Good idea, bro. Good idea. Bad choice, I know. Okay, so he knows. Alright, cool. That's all I wanted. That's all I cared about spreading. How bad of an idea that was. That was a terrible idea. Anyways, the first few hours when I got into the woods went fine. I set up camp, built a fire, burned myself trying to cook hot dogs, piss on fire that burned me. Dude, this English is... Okay, English is definitely not this guy's first language. That's alright. Then I started to realize, camping is pretty boring when you're all alone, so I decided to go to sleep. Next thing I know, I wake up to the sound of a young girl's voice down in the creek. Sounds like she's college type age. She's saying, "Help! I need some help down here. I'm lost. Dad, help!" And I can hear her down in the creek from my tent. Now this isn't the first time I've been lured into the woods by a voice pleading for help. Just casually mentions that? Okay. But this voice was a lot more convincing than the others. Nonetheless, I still brought my newly purchased .45 caliber .45 caliber handgun that I had bought for dealing with things on the land. Now, this is one thing I love about main characters in a story. Whenever they buy a gun, in horror stories, when they buy a gun, I love it. I love it. I made my way into the creek, flashlight in hand, and headed down to the voice. Soon, I find the source. Now, I didn't put the flashlight beam on her right away, because I didn't want to blind her. But I could clearly see the outline of a small girl sitting on the bank of the creek. I got about 15 feet away and she stopped me, stating that, "You really don't need that flashlight with the moon out like this." It wasn't even close to a full moon, so that confused me a little. I replied with, "I don't know about you, but I can't see a thing out here." "Let me help you though, are you hurt?" Then I started to shine the flashlight on her, but she screamed, "Stop!" before I got to her face. This time, her voice wasn't as convincing. I could tell she wasn't human. Now, what you guys need to realize is that I'm not a badass, and I'm not trying to sound cool or tough. But ever since something happened to me 3 years ago, the same event that caused me to move out here, I don't respond to situations the same anymore. Maybe I'm not scared of death anymore. Maybe I'm mentally unstable. Maybe I'm weird. But when I established that this thing wasn't human, I started to smile. It fooled me. It got me out here into the woods in its domain. It was probably even going to make an attempt on my life. But I might as well piss it off a little. So I flicked my flashlight up to reveal its face. It actually was a girl. Sort of. She was super pale and had abnormally large eyes that were completely black. When the light hit her face, her head snapped forward at me and made eye contact with me, and her jaw dropped open. God damn it, dude. When the light hit her face, her head snapped forward and made eye contact with me, and her jaw dropped open 3 times bigger than any human being. And then she screamed. God. This murder bird, these run-on sentences, my brother. We gotta do better than this next time. It was loud, like inhuman loud. It sounded like a girl scream, but as if it were being played through massive speakers to make it ear-splitting. Then I felt something closing around my neck. She hadn't moved, but was somehow choking me, still screaming. I have realized while living here that the entities that can hurt you can also hurt themselves. Now, most of them are tough as nails, but they can be hurt. This memory went through my head just as I felt something warm dripping into my neck, and my left ear went quiet. Busted eardrum. I aggressively threw my flashlight at that bitch, and I aggressively threw my flashlight at that bitch, and it connected with what I assume was her eye. I couldn't tell for sure because I didn't have a flashlight. Yes, you did just throw it. And yes, I forgot to use the gun. Oh my god, bro. You forgot to use the gun? Are you serious? You throw the flashlight, but you forget to use the gun. It was new, and in the current life or death situation, I forgot I had it. Luckily, this girl wasn't one of the tough ones, and I felt the grip on my neck loosen and her scream stop. No sooner had I taken my first breath when she bent over backwards possession style and sprinted into the woods in reverse. When I finally caught my breath, I slowly walked back to my campsite and went to sleep in the tent. Dude. Always him walking off, like he just after he deals with something, just walks off. Just, you know, nah, that was nothing, nah, I'm gonna walk off. I'm about to walk my ass back to my campsite and go to sleep in my tent. Okay, bro. Oh, hold on, he mentions that here. You may be asking why he didn't go back home after. But it was a 20-minute hike and my flashlight was broken, so I had to wait till morning. Slept pretty good though. No noises woke me up. I woke up the next morning expecting my ear to be killing me. But miraculously, it was completely back to normal. I later figured out that it was the lady in the tree who fixed my ear, but that's a story for another time. That morning, I just packed up everything and headed back home. Only thing that got messed up was my flashlight, so I wasn't even that disappointed in the trip. I still don't camp out there anymore though, because no matter how weirdly wired I am, that girl really did freak me out a good bit, and I'm sure she's still out there. Yes, I'm a piece of shit. While editing this video, I realized I didn't even talk about the story by the end. I just did the outro and then dipped. That's on me. Sorry, I woke up again. I'm editing today. I recorded this video yesterday. I just woke up again. I'm very busy. Anyway, some parts that this leaves off is he mentions a lady in the woods. And we have first time we're ever hearing about this lady in the woods. That's something I like that this story does. Is it'll say, maybe it's the aliens that took me out of the cornfield and probed my anus last week. And we'll never even have any mention of an alien. And I love that it just throws that in there to add to the world. And some things that we learn in this first part of the story, later on they get revisited. So I just love that he does a good setup here. I'm actually really excited to read this next part because this is one of my favorite stories. I listen to Mr. Creepypasta's recording of this about once a month, if like multiple times a month. Alright everybody, and that's going to conclude the first part of My Property Isn't Normal. Now I will say the next part is the best part, so I will, no matter even if this gets like 2 views, I will be reading that next part entirely. I really don't have much else to say on the story. I would love to read more. Please like the video or comment if you would like to see more. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one.